We are so open to talk about what foods we eat, our religion, sex, so many different things that could be deemed taboo to a certain extent, but money is on the bottom of the pile. That needs to be moved up on that scale. Like, hey, what do you do? Do you save? Do you have a retirement account? If we can push that financial literacy out and folks get it, that makes the conversation a conversation. It doesn't make it weird. It doesn't make it taboo. Let's talk about it. What does it look like? Some couples want to combine what they have. Some don't. Some keep it separate. Some combine some things and keep other things separate, and that's fine. It depends on, again, what works for you and your partnership and who your partner is and how you both communicate.
Hi, Envisionaires. It's Nicole Mingyuan here. Welcome to the Envisionaire podcast. This is the podcast where we envision living our best lives by exploring everyday topics related to health, wealth, and community. On today's episode, we have Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell, who shifted from her career in TV to wealth management. She is now the president of Platinum Wealth Management, where she and her team help empower their clients with financial planning. Jennifer also hosts a Platinum Talks Wealth podcast, where she talks about money memories and financial infidelities and how these can affect future relationships as an adult. Her podcast ranks in the top 3% of global podcasts worldwide, which is an incredible success. And if those accolades weren't enough, Jennifer is also very active in her local and state community, where she serves as a state commissioner for the Nevada Commission for Women, and she volunteers on the board of Girl Scouts for Sierra Nevada. She has also been voted one of Sierra Nevada's top 20 most powerful women by Northern Nevada Business View in 2018 and 2019. So, wow, she is incredible and inspirational all around. Today, Jennifer will be speaking with us about the very important topic of how to build wealth as a couple and how to overcome one's money memories. Full disclosure, this is not official financial advice. It's more of a general discussion, and everyone should obviously set up time with their own financial advisor to discuss their own specific circumstances. But that said, I do think so many of you listening are going to find this episode super insightful, and I'm sure there's going to be many key takeaways for us all. I'm very excited to welcome Jennifer to the Envisionaire podcast. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Gosh, thanks so much for having me. I was looking forward to this.
Good. Well, we're happy to have you. I've already touched on your super interesting career background, but I think the listeners would love to hear more about you and your childhood and how you got into TV, and then also how that was, and then how you kind of pivoted from TV to financial planning and wealth management.
Yeah, it's on paper, it sounds weird, right? To go from television to finance. Like it's an odd journey. And it wasn't something that I expected or planned. In my brain, I was like, great, I'm going to have a TV contract here for a couple years. I'm going to maybe resign or move here. And I had the whole thing, I think, lined out in my brain of how I wanted to navigate it. And when I was little, I, would make microphones out of foil, right? So foil, I'd make a microphone, and I'd go around and interview everyone because I thought, okay, this is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of my path, or so I thought. My grandparents raised me. They were mom and dad and just amazing human beings. Like, I owe everything to them for where I'm at now. Just, I'm super, super, super grateful. They're no longer with us, but they're just wildly still very impactful in my life. And I'm still so grateful. So growing up with them, they were Depression kids, and they were just, again, great grandparents. So kind of back to my money memories as well, right? They would have like cabinets full of cans, because back in the day for them, it was huge to have, they had big families, big brothers and sisters, like lots, like 7, 8. So to be able to get food on the table was a triumph.
Yeah.
And not taking that lightly back in the Depression years, right? So they would always have cans of everything. And I never thought it was weird, because that's how I grew up with them, right? They just had cans of everything. Yeah. And then as I got a little bit older, I was sharing this with you on my podcast. They had like a can of corn that was bloated. And I was like, guys, like, we got to get rid of these. Like, if you're going to go out in the world, you're not going to go out because you ate a, bloated can of corn that gave you botulism or whatever. Right. So I remember putting them in garbage bags, and they had a lot. So they were so angry at me. They were so mad. And I was like, I will replace every can that I'm throwing away But now I look at that as an adult and I look back on that memory, which still, planted a seed for me
Mm-hmm.
too, of course. But thinking about that, it was all about wanting to feed your family. And that was the number one priority in
Yeah.
everything for them. And I
Right.
still think that, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that goes with me still. That's important. Like really making sure that you're taking care of family and friends and taking
Mm-hmm.
care of the basic needs. Kind of back to my journey. So went to college, wanted to be in TV, I was the crazy person who not only I worked when I went through school, but I also had 5 internships at 5 different
Wow.
TV stations because I was a crazy person. I wanted my foot in the door. I wanted to work and I wanted to work hard. And that was what I was, my grandparents brought me up that way. If you make enough money and if you don't, then you get another job and then you get a third job. So you're working 15 jobs and having 15 internships and just working your tail off and trying to get through school. So that
Wow.
was always kind of where I came from. TV was a tough path. It was,
Yeah.
I learned a lot. I cut my teeth. I made a lot of mistakes. I look back and I'm like, wow, I'm humbled so much by my journey there. But it was great. It was really great. I reported on some crazy stories throughout my life. I saw some wild things. I thought I was always going to live in that land. I thought I was going to always live in TV. I had
Yeah.
actually just signed a contract for a large cruise line and a large network to travel around the world and interview famous chefs and talk about,
Oh, wow.
the communities that they were in. So I just signed that
Yeah.
contract and I was getting ready to leave and my grandpa got sick. And
Oh.
he was like this crabby ornery man. And we teased like he always would get through everything. He was going to live to
Mm-hmm.
156 because he was ornery and crabby. But we loved him for that. And that's who he was. He was the backbone of our family. And he passed
Mm-hmm.
away. And so we were in
Oh, I'm
shock.
sorry.
And my grandma's like, what happened there? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like he was the person. And he was the person financially as well. So in
Mm-hmm.
couple relationships, there's always one that kind of takes the lead a little bit more than the other. And that was my grandpa. And especially that was kind of stereotypical gender roles back in the day too. So they
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a lot, but what they had was spread around in a lot of different institutions, little amounts,
Okay.
a few different places. So we found ourselves
Okay.
going, first off, mourning the loss of my grandpa, like, which was awful, not being prepared,
Yeah.
which was awful, and then sitting in front
Yeah.
of, advisors or bankers or whatnot, and never having that warm, fuzzy feeling that they cared or wanted to do what was in my grandma's best interest. And she's like, this
Mm-hmm.
is crazy. She's like, if we're going through this, imagine how many other women are going through this. And at that moment, I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, I'll learn everything I can. And there was my pivot. There was my
Wow.
pivot, which I never would have planned in a million years for myself. I mean, finance, what? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So I learned everything I could. I got licensed and I've been in the industry almost 15 years now.
Wow.
I said before, I think when you and I were chatting, like, I think of this as like a river. Like you're in the river,
Yeah.
you can fight it and go upstream, which sometimes we do. You
Mm-hmm.
can stand there and have the
Mm-hmm.
water hit your back and it's uncomfortable to try to stand there, or you can kind of flow with it
Mm-hmm.
and see where life takes you. And I feel like
Yeah.
that is really what my
What?
journey's been. I never would have planned
Love that.
my life out in the manner that it's unfolded, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
unfolded beautifully. And I feel like I'm really trying to make an impact for others and help others and lift others along the way.
That's amazing. I mean, your grandmother, did she see most of your journey in the financial world before she
Yeah, she
passed away
saw a good
sadly?
amount. She didn't, which makes me it makes me sad because she didn't see that I launched my own firm. So for me to
Oh.
launch my own firm, I worked at mega firms, I worked at many different, huge financial advisory groups,
Mhm.
but she didn't see me take the reins and really say, "Hey, let me do this different and better and be able to support clients in a I don't know, I always say the platinum rule. So it's serving clients how they want to be served. And I knew that I
Mm,
could do that differently. And that's why I launched Platinum Wealth Management. And I wish she was here to see that and to see that journey along the way, but she's with me.
yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, the fact that she helped you and to pivot like that and to make such an impact on your life, and now you're like paying it forward in her honor almost, just spreading that knowledge and helping other women, but also men, but like, the fact that you're helping other women who would have been in that situation. I think that's incredible, really,
Thank you.
Jennifer. So,
Thank you.
yeah, you should
But
be proud of yourself. I'm sure she's there going like, "Yes, high five, Jennifer."
yeah, no, I know she and my grandpa, like they're around and however they are around, right? Like I feel
Hmm.
them often, but
Yeah.
I wish she was tangibly here so I could give her a big squishy hug. Same with my grandpa.
Oh, oh, that's nice. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you going there. And that also was really interesting to see kind of like the change from TV to the financial world. When you left TV, was that I mean, obviously, because you were Emmy nominated journalist. Did you feel like, was there a struggle? Like, oh, should I really be giving this up now? Or like, or do you have intentions to go back maybe into TV? Like, was there any sort of,
No.
no.
No. And that's a great question.
Mm.
I feel like it really just kind of, I went with the river, I went with the river on that. And TV's evolved a lot as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've really been able to kind of light my fire with the podcast.
Mm.
So I still have my fingers in the pot. I still,
Yes.
again, I can talk, on different networks where they want me potentially,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
they'll
yeah.
reach out. So
Absolutely.
I still have my fingers in the pot in different
Yeah.
arenas. It's just different now. And I feel like it's different, and I'm able to kind of hold the reins now more so than, being contracted as a journalist. And I mean, what an honor for me to say, hey, Emmy nominated journalist, wealth advisor,
Yeah.
right? I can still do a little bit of everything.
I know.
But through
It's
the podcast,
amazing.
I feel like it's great because I can share the story, and there's no agenda behind it, right? We can really share, same with you, raw, vulnerable, amazing stories,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not limited on time, and you're not limited on content, and you can really just evolve with this.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. Podcasting is like one of the best things ever. You get to meet such amazing people who share their stories, and you get inspired, and who knows where that leads you. So, yeah, I know that's cool. And you keep your hand in the media world, which is very, very cool. So, yeah. Right. Well, let's get on to financial planning for couples. I've listened to your podcast and I understand money memories and the importance of being very conscious of these. Could you maybe explain to the listeners what the term is and how it impacts their lives and what they can do, if anything, to start overcoming some of these money memories?
Yeah. So I've been in the industry, like I said, almost 15 years. And one common thread I was hearing through, couples, through men, women, through anybody I was sitting down with, was the same thread of that money memory. So for example, I had a client who, again, has a sizable portfolio, does very, very well, brilliant, brilliant human being. And, he'll reach out and say, hey, can I afford to get this? Can I afford to get this? Can I really, is it going to mess up my financial
Mm,
plan? Yes, you can get that. It's not going to mess up anything. But for him, he goes back to Midwestern in the US family. Again, same concepts, trying to struggle to get food on the
mm-hmm,
table. Even though he is wildly, wildly
mm-hmm,
successful, that's where his money memory goes. So I feel like with people, when you think about it, when you think of a money memory, it may be a new term for you, for folks that are listening, but
mm-hmm,
think back to a moment that resonated with you, either as a child or a younger person, when you were like, oh, wow, like when I think back to money, what's my first money memory? I've
mm-hmm,
heard, all kinds of things of people trying to, scrape up change from the couch to be able to get hot lunch at school. I've heard a money memory of a gentleman. He's actually a host on a big network. His money memory is a lemonade stand when he was younger. And lemonade stands, right? Maybe we all had them and maybe we didn't, but it was when you had this little stand and you sold lemonade to make some pocket change.
mm-hmm.
So this was, gosh, his was probably 40 plus years ago. He had this lemonade stand and he was charging $5, $5 a cup, which is a ton of money for a cup of
Yes.
lemonade and like a little, cup.
Yeah.
And I said, really? And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, I used the good sugar. I used the good lemons. He's like, and I gave them a song and a dance. And he's like, I knew my worth. What? Being so
Good for
little and
him.
knowing your
Yeah.
worth, like that's
Yeah.
his money memory. And right,
Wow.
everybody's is so different. Many can be, hey, we had a rough time growing up and it was even tough to get food on the table.
Mm-hmm.
His was, I know my worth, and I was charging $5 for
Wow.
a tiny cup of lemonade. I've heard all the stories, but
Yeah.
and everybody's story is so unique, but everybody has one. Everyone has
Okay.
one. So that's something that I really like to discover and talk through with people, because that
Mm-hmm.
really, in essence, has a psychology side of how you treat money as an adult. Now, it's
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily that is in stone and that is how you're going to live your life, because you can change
Mm-hmm.
that narrative. You can change that narrative saying, oh yeah, that's where I came from. Here's where I am and here's where I want to be. So there's power
Right.
behind that, but you need to know where
Mm-hmm.
you came from.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But how do you change it then? How do you change the narrative if there's psychology behind it and there's that's such a profound those memories when you're young are so profound that they can actually continue to affect your behavior as an adult. How do you change it?
I think this is where your magical audit comes into play. Truly. Like, I mean, that goes
Oh,
hand in hand, right? To circle back to
yes.
you directly, because that's really reflecting saying, where am I at and where do I
Mm,
want to be? Do I want to
right.
continue this path? Do I not? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's your decision. That's your decision
Mm-hmm.
of how you want to navigate your life here on earth, right? And I think really taking that that direction internally and taking that time and holding that space for yourself and saying, okay, I'm doing my audit. Where am I at? Where am I scoring? Am I good with this? Am I not? How do I want to evolve forward? That's very personal.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So for those listening, I hope you do know what my life audit is. If you don't, check out the episode, It's Never Too Late to Pivot, where I talked it through. And also go on the website. You'll find this tool that I put together. But essentially, the life audit is this idea you sit down and you look at all areas of your life holistically and you give yourself a score. One of the columns or categories that I like to use is wealth. And within that, various different subsets like investments, business, entrepreneurship, and also just your own general budget. And I tend to give myself a score. And if there's like areas that are lacking, I try and intentionally start to change that by doing, setting new goals and then actioning various different ways to actually address those. If I'm hearing you correctly, Jennifer, if I'm understanding you, it's essentially consciously becoming aware of it and working through to see if you're happy with it. Because some money memories, for example, with the gentleman you mentioned, that's probably a good money memory for him. The fact that he recognizes self-worth at a young age, he was like, great, $5 for one, cup. And now he's probably, I assume he's quite successful because he's brought that forward with him in his life. But what if there's areas like, for example, let's say someone had a really negative money memory, like lack, scarcity. Is there anything that you would recommend that person does? Because they could become aware of it, but like, how do they actually change the narrative and change the cycle of thinking like, if I spend money, that's bad. If I spend money, I could go into debt. If I spend money, like whatever the negative association is, because sometimes it can be super limiting, right? Do you have any ideas of how one can get over that?
I think this is, not to toot the horn of financial advisors, but I think this is when you have that conversation. Come to that realization of like what that money memory is to maybe where you're at now. Look at it, know it, and then have that conversation with someone in the industry to be able to talk through where are you at? Like, where can we get you? What are your goals? Let's look bigger than that and deeper than that and really have that open, communication.
Okay, good. All right. So anyone who's feeling their money memory might be limiting them, set up some time to speak to your financial advisor. If you are in Nevada or Arizona, reach out to Jennifer and her team.
So yeah, I'm licensed throughout the U.S. So anybody anywhere in the U.S. And we even have folks that are nomads that travel the world. So if I can help in any way, we'd be more than happy to have that conversation with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Reach out to her team. You might be able to get over your money memory, which is good. Okay. So when do we, as couples now that we're aware of like money memories, now let's say you become aware of it. And then all of a sudden you enter into a relationship, right? And so now you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, partner. When do you actually start talking about money and this idea of building wealth? Is it at the beginning, like straight, like date number 3? Or is it like a year in when you've moved in together, when you have children, when you're engaged, married? Like what is it? When is it?
Yeah. So this is actually one of my podcast episodes as well, ironically enough, talking through this. So I think it depends on, is this person somebody that you're dating or hanging out with, or is this going to be somebody that's a partner for you? I think knowing that I think is important, but also kind of going into the conversation at some point early on is important too. The podcast we talked about got a little dicey in a good way, but it was like, we are so open to talk about like what foods we eat, our religion, sex, like so many different things, that could be deemed taboo to a certain extent, but money is on the bottom of the pile.
Right.
Like that needs to be moved up on that scale of like, hey, what do you do? Do you save? Do you have retirement accounts? Like, so my, my stepdaughter who I tease, like, she's just, gosh, she's such a rock star. But when she was little, she was like in preschool and I was teaching her about a Roth. I'm like, yeah, this is a Roth, blah, blah. And she's like, this little boy, and she's little at the time, right? So she's like, this little boy at school, he's really cute. She's like, but he does not have a 401k or a Roth yet. And mind you, he's like 4 or 5 maybe. And like, that was like,
That's amazing.
That was like her thing. And now she's, an early teenager. So she gets it a little bit more now. But like that just made me laugh because I was like, good for you. Like if we can push that financial literacy out and folks get it, like that makes the conversation a conversation. It doesn't make it weird. It doesn't make it taboo. Like, let's talk about it. Like, what does it look like? Some couples want to combine what they have. Some don't. Some keep it separate. Some combine some things and keep other things separate. And that's fine. It depends on like, again, what works for you and your partnership and who your partner is and how you both communicate. One thing that I like to share too is there's a seat at the table for everyone. I think there's a misnomer, at least in the US, there's a lot of commercials that are like, oh, if you have $1 million, we'll talk to you. If you have $500,000, we'll talk to you. And then everybody else is like, well, what about me? I'm not at that level. Like I'm not there. I mean, we have clients who are, starting out, starting over, starting with sometimes not much, right? But for them, that's a lot. And they work super hard to get to where they're at. We also have clients that have many commas in their portfolios, right? But everyone deserves a seat at the table. Yeah. That's so important. So no matter where you're starting out, have that conversation. Find somebody that you trust, whoever that is, that you could communicate with, and talk about it. Find out where you're at. Start, really thinking about like, what's a plan? As an individual, what's a plan as a couple? Are we doing this as a couple in a partnership, or are we keeping something separate? Because that, again, it's different for each couple. There's not a blueprint there. I kind of think back in the day, if you were a certain age or a certain whatever, your portfolio, your financial planning all looked exactly the same. It was very cookie cutter. It's not anymore. It's not cookie cutter because everybody's unique and different. And this needs to be a really important private conversation that you have, not only with your partner, but also with your financial advisor as well.
Interesting. So just on that same point about planning as an individual and a couple, you would recommend, like, even if you're together as a couple and you've started, combining money and so on, that you still keep an individual element to your investments and your personal? Oh, no.
Nope. I don't recommend that. I don't recommend it. I really think it depends on the couple.
Okay.
It depends on their circumstances. So there's not a blanketed approach on that saying, yes, you need to have private accounts and yes, you need to overlap here. What are your goals? What are your goals individually? What are your goals as a couple? How do you overlap each other? And where do you want to do this? Because everybody's a little different. I've seen people completely overlap and that's fine and that works for them. And I've seen people only overlap some things and that works for them. So I think just coming to the table and having that conversation, I think that's where it's really, invaluable because it's not going to look the same, your financial relationship comparably to maybe your neighbors or other people that you know. Yours is going to be unique to you.
And what if culturally, like it's not part of, like money is like taboo, let's say, for example, like it's crass or it's considered, really private. I appreciate that it's individual, it's based on the individuals, but you would really encourage people to really just push past the discomfort, if you will, if they think that it's serious and it's.
Yeah, money has weird psychological things behind it, right? I've talked to so many people over the years and so many clients over the years that some will deem money as evil, right? Culturally, they're like, money is evil. If you have money, then you are not a good person. And again, that's a stereotype, but talking through that can be challenging. Different families, different nationalities, there's differences across the board for everyone. And also there's just family dynamics that are different too. I've talked to people who are in different religious organizations that have really unique kind of stories and journeys with what they've had just from what they've grown up with and they've seen. So for them, changing the narrative that money's not bad. Money is a tool.
Yeah.
I don't believe money should ever be your God, but money is a tool for you to utilize to, reach what your goals are. And in essence, you look at time, money is designed to free up more time so you can live your dreams.
Yeah. Financial freedom. That's what we all want, I guess, right? Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay. So let's say that now people as a couple, individuals have had the money, like they've had the conversation about money. Now, what are some practical steps that they can actually take together as a couple to start building wealth together? So let's say, obviously, I appreciate presumably seeing a financial advisor, but are there other things they can do also that are more general that they can just start implementing?
Yeah, I mean, if their employer has a workplace plan, what does that look like? Are they taking advantage of that? Are they doing any retirement accounts outside of that? Where are their tax brackets? Can they even do that? So again, not to go back to the financial advisor conversation, but that's where you really want to look at things holistically. There's definitely things out the gate that you can do. And if you have an employer plan and they have a match, that's free money for you, right? So that's a good strategy, but that's also a conversation. Does that make sense? Can you afford to do that? What does it look like? And then from there, we can layer in, like, we can do different types of retirement accounts behind the scenes. We can do different types of non-retirement accounts behind the scenes. Tax structure also plays a factor in this a little bit too. So what does that look like? Are you pushing your self threshold out of certain accounts because you make too much? Well, fantastic. But then there's different strategies we can really investigate from that. So I think, again, back to the financial planning, holistically looking at everything, looking at when you want to retire. Is it next year? Is it 20 years from now? Because those all play big factors in your time horizon when you need the money. If you're earmarking money for a certain dream or goal, how soon do you need it? Are you buying a house in a year? Are you buying a flat in a year? Are you looking for a vacation home? Like, are you buying a car? What's that earmarked for? Are you doing the right things there? Your retirement money, how is that being allocated? Does that make sense? Are you comfortable with that? So risk tolerance, time horizon, those are really important conversations, but looking at everything holistically too, big picture, to make sure that you're doing the right things.
That's awesome. That's great. And do you think that they can do that without a financial advisor, or is that a conversation they should have like before they meet the financial advisor? Is that something they should have all together with the financial advisor?
Normally people could self-direct and figure out that out on themselves. I think the financial advisor really takes, the psychology into play. So that's where that relationship becomes so important. But yeah, if somebody wanted to try to navigate it themselves, they could, but you're also really close to that situation. And are you missing something?
Yeah.
And this is something that I'm licensed in and been doing for a very long time. So I feel like find an expert that knows more than you.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jennifer. Right. Well, now we are wrapping up the podcast and we're hitting the Envisionaire questionnaire section. And that is a fun feature of the Envisionaire podcast where we ask our guests to reflect and look backwards in their past, present, and future. So, Jennifer, are you ready for the Envisionaire questionnaire?
And first time hearing these questions, by the way, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So who knows where this is going?
Okay, so looking back towards your past, if you could give your 15-year-old self any advice, what would it be and why?
Yeah, I feel like it's a little cliche, but it's don't sweat the small stuff, right? Like, your life is going to unfold better and different than you could have ever imagined. I would have never put myself in the position I'm in now, but I feel like I'm really trying to make a big impact and help others.
That's amazing. Very good. Reflecting in the present moment, if you could seek advice from anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
Ooh, that's a good question. Wow. I think this would go back just on a super personal level for me. I would want to talk to my grandma.
Aww.
And I would want to say, hey, what are you thinking? What does this look like to you from your perspective? Like, I'm trying to honor you and do all the right things. Like, what are your thoughts?
That's beautiful. That's really, really nice. Thank you for that. And okay, so looking forward, future looking, what's one goal that you would like to achieve in the next 5 years that you're willing to share with the listeners?
I've got lots of them. This is the more easy one for me. So it's continuing to grow my team very thoughtfully. One thing for us too is I want everyone to know, and my team, all women, all different backgrounds, nationalities, there's a seat for everyone at the table. And I feel like that message is just coming stronger and stronger to me recently too, where people think that they can't get help or can't have a conversation because they're not worthy or don't have enough or whatever that is. We're honored to do what we do. And my team has that heart-centric across the board. Everybody feels that way. And we are honored to help in any way. And that's beautiful for me. So I want to continuously, grow my team thoughtfully with that same heart-centric feeling. There's a book on the horizon that will be released before the end of the year.
Amazing.
And that's the first of many.
Yes.
And then I also want to launch children's books, right? Like, give them to schools, give them to districts, give them to who wants them, like make them ridiculously affordable.
Yeah.
So people can, start with their little ones and get some financial literacy there.
Oh, that's amazing.
So we always want what's best. What we did, our parents wanted better for us. We want better for our kids and the younger generations. So I really want to be, thoughtful and help being impactful in that environment as well. So there's all that. And the podcast, just keeping going, right? Keeping financial literacy out there, making this a conversation,
Amazing.
continuing to kind of like push the element of this is taboo, because it's not. This is a conversation. We all have journeys. We all have money memories. We all have financial infidelities that we've either experienced or witnessed that we could all learn from.
Yeah.
So really just keeping that environment and that community just embraced.
Amazing. I'm so excited for you. You have so many goals and I can't wait to see them all unfold. And do let us know when the book is out, and we will definitely put a link in this episode as well. And we'll also link your podcast. But I just definitely want to thank you so much for being on the Envisionaire podcast. Obviously, you're so insightful. And if anyone is looking for advice, please do reach out to Jennifer. I'll put all of her information in the bio and also in the show notes. I really just want to thank you again, Jennifer, for all of your time. And I look forward to speaking again soon.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure. Such a pleasure getting to know you as well.
Same here. I can't wait for you to come. When you come to London, you have to come over for dinner. We'll meet up. It'll be so nice.
I would love that. And same if you come to the US. Same.
Amazing. Okay. Right. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit subscribe and check out this video here.